Hey everybody, welcome back. I apologize for the delay between the last video and now. It has been a really crazy season. Hopefully you guys understand. So today I want to talk to you guys about something that's really important when we're looking at individual ABA programs. So ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, has these core principles that we stick to that are crucial in our field. We have to have them. So one of those is generalization. And generalization is the opportunity for children to demonstrate what they've learned in therapy or in school in other places. So if they can take what I have taught them and apply it outside of the session, then we're able to generalize it. So we can generalize in a few different ways, and we make sure that every student is able to generalize. So the first is across people. So we know that little Timmy is able to say his alphabet with Miss Courtney, and he's able to say it with his parents and his teacher at school. He can say it to whomever may be asking him. Number two, we can generalize across settings. So again, we're working with Miss Courtney one-on-one in home by ourselves, working on our ABCs, but he's also able to now say his alphabet in the car on his way to school and at school, so outside of his normal environment. Sometimes that piece can be a little bit tricky for students who are rigid, who are very structured, set in their ways. The next way we can generalize is across stimuli. With my ABC example, so little Timmy is able to say his ABCs. He's also able to look at ABC magnets and put them in order. He is also able to do an ABC puzzle. He's able to read an ABC book. He can look at all these different opportunities for saying the alphabet, and he can still apply that knowledge. So there are several other ways we can generalize. Those are the three big ones that I'm going to focus on today. So how do we ensure that our child is going to be able to generalize the skills that we're teaching? When we teach, when we're in sessions, when we're doing a good quality ABA program, we're making sure that we're using what's called errorless learning or errorless prompting strategies. If we think about it, when we are working on a skill that is really new to us, that's really hard, we don't want somebody to just hand us, let's take cooking for example. We don't want somebody to just hand us a baking pan and the ingredients and say, all right, bake me a cake. Some of you might be able to do that. I couldn't do that. I would need help. So I would want to make sure that it's errorless, that I'm able to make that cake in a way that is not making any mistakes. So we would start by prompting. The first time we bake a cake, we might go heavier with the prompting. I would need a full list of instructions. I might even need somebody standing right next to me helping me go through the list. My husband is a much better cook than I am, so maybe he would need to be right next to me saying, no, this is what you need to do. So we would start with that heavier prompting. We would say most intrusive prompting. When we're doing errorless learning, we go from most to least intrusive, and I'll explain what that means in just a second. So with my cooking example, we're starting with the most intrusive. That's possibly hand over hand, needing somebody to say, nope, we're going to take this and we're going to roll the dough just like this, standing behind me, hand over hand, helping me through it. Could be a full textual prompt, a full written prompt where they have written step-by-step instructions for me. So hopefully I can get it right. I won't get that wrong. And then gradually we're going to fade out those prompts. So the more cakes I bake, the more opportunities I have for cooking, the less amount of prompts that I'm going to need. So the next time I might not need that hand over hand, but I might need just a gentle nudge saying, oh, take this, roll this over here. Those instructions might not need to be step by step. It just might say, take those ingredients and mix them. I don't need to know how to mix them or what ingredients go in first or the order, but it's still there. It's still a little bit of a prompt. And then eventually, again, we're going to keep fading, making it most to least restrictive. Least restrictive environment would be full independence. I don't need any prompts. So eventually somebody can say, bake a cake, and all I would need is to just look around, grab all the ingredients myself because I've learned it, I've memorized it. I know how to do it. So there's numerous ways you can fade a prompt depending on the skill. We look at different prompts. We have physical prompts, which again, it could be that hand over hand. Most kids, some kids really don't like this at all. So you have to take into consideration each individual child before you do this. Some kids do need that hand over hand prompting to show them where to go. Then you can fade out that prompt and you can do a partial physical prompt, or again, you're just not using that full hand over hand. So instead of this, we're just kind of nudging them in the right direction. We can also use verbal prompts. So if it is, let's say, what color is this? Pink. We're giving them the words. So it's hard to do just by myself, but what color is this? Pink, and then we get them to say pink, echoing it for us. Then when we want to fade that verbal prompt, what color is this? Maybe that's all they need to get the pink to clue them into what to say. You can also have written prompts, which is what we talked about with the directions, the ingredients on my cake. So instead of full list written out, maybe we just need a couple of steps or the first few words of each step. It might not have to be very, very intrusive. So again, prompting and fading our prompts really is so important to get that generalization piece. And I went through that really quickly, but I'd be more than happy to spend more time on it another time if you guys still have questions. But that errorless prompting is how we keep success in our students, and it's how we keep them motivated. So again, if somebody handed me a book of calculus assignments, I'm long past calculus, I don't remember it, but if they said, okay, complete this, you have to get them all right, nope. I would probably demonstrate some aberrant behaviors. I might get some frustration. You might see some verbal aggression. Might start yelling. Definitely distraction. I'd tear it up. So we can't be surprised when we see those behaviors from our kids when we're working. Sometimes we have to really step back and look at ourselves when we're, as the therapist, when we're working with those kids and say, okay, is it something that I'm doing? Maybe I need to take a step back and make sure that I'm prompting them and it's errorless. Of course, every therapist, every ABA program, we need to be taking data. I cannot explain how important that is. That's how we track our progress. So if we're working and we see in the data that, oh, we've got a lot of errors in a row, we need to step back. We need to go back a prompt level, make it a little more intrusive, go back up that pyramid until we can make sure that they're errorless, until we can make sure they're having success. It's the only way they're going to learn. Now with errorless prompting, the one caveat, the thing that we need to make sure we remember is we have to fade that prompt. And we have to be very careful to fade it appropriately. So it shouldn't be faded too fast or they're going to get frustrated because they haven't really learned it, and they're going to make a lot of mistakes. That means they can embed errors, meaning they're going to learn the wrong thing and they're going to keep repeating those mistakes. It could lead to scrolling behaviors, where they're kind of just, oh, I'm going to look at you. Oh, she thinks she's making a face, so I must be the right answer right there. Scrolling, they don't really know, but they're just kind of searching. We've had kids who know sign language, who scroll through all their signs until they get what they want. It doesn't mean that they actually know what the sign means. They haven't paired the sign with the actual item. They're just looking because they know you want something. They don't know what you're asking them. So we have to make sure we watch out for scrolling behaviors. And then we also need to make sure that we're not fading it too slowly. So if we are constantly doing partial physical prompt every time, or a gestural prompt, we're pointing to the answer every time, they can get stuck. They're not going to learn it. So now they are what's called prompt dependent, where they're waiting on you to tell them the answer. They're not responding to the SD, which is you telling them what to do. They're only responding to the prompt. So that's a little bit tricky, and we do have kids, once they get prompt dependent, we have to back way up and kind of reteach that skill to help them unlearn it, unlearn the prompt dependency, and work back through it. Easier said than done. So we just have to be careful. Some programs, with my programs in particular, I include prompt schedules. So that way my therapists know how many days, what criteria we need to be on before we can prompt fade. So that way we're not getting that prompt dependency. So it's a certain mastery criteria before we can move on. But also that doesn't mean that we can't move more quickly for kids if they are flying through it. If they don't need us to prompt them, we're not prompting them. Let them go, because individualization and independence is key. That's what we're wanting. That's our goal. That's our job. So with that, learning all of those prompting strategies, going through that's how we get that generalization piece. Ideally, it's a beautiful system. It works every time, where we start at most intrusive, that full physical prompt. We fade. They're at independence. And then once they're at independence and they've met mastery criteria, that's when we jump in with generalization. And we're going to make sure they're still independent with mom and dad. We're going to make sure they're still independent by applying that skill in the grocery store or out in public or in school. We're going to make sure that they can identify that a picture of a bird is the same thing as a bird up in the sky when we're outside, or a bird at the zoo when we're taking a trip to the zoo. They can apply that knowledge in different settings and in different stimuli. That is the key to generalization. And if you have concerns that your student, your client, your own child is missing that generalization, that's definitely a time to step in and say, hey, we're missing a step. Maybe our child hasn't really learned the skill as much as we had hoped, or as best as we thought. And we can work on that piece of generalization. So again, really quick video today. I just wanted to get in there, and I'm going to do a series on these key qualities of a good ABA program. So today we talked about generalization, what is it, and then that prompt fading and why it's so important. So as always, if you have questions, please comment below. Send an email if you have any. Like and subscribe as well, and let me know if there's any topics that you want me to go back over, or if you want to know more about. Happy to help.